We have all been lied to about what character looks like. You've been told that to truly know someone, you have to watch them over years, go through a crisis with them, or see how they handle a massive, life-altering tragedy. That is a dangerous, time-consuming illusion. In fact, it is the exact loop that keeps people trapped in toxic relationships, hiring the wrong employees, and trusting business partners who eventually stab them in the back. Here is the cold, psychological truth. People do not reveal their true selves during major crises. Why? Because during a crisis, the brain's survival mechanism kicks in. The prefrontal cortex goes on high alert. The individual knows they are being watched, they know the stakes are high, and they consciously assemble a mask of strength, poise, or virtue. They play the hero because the social script demands it. If you want to bypass the social mask, if you want to see straight into the neural operating system of the person sitting across from you, you have to look at the micro moments. You have to stop looking at the stage and start looking at the backstage when they think the lights are off. Imagine having a superpower where within 30 minutes of meeting someone, you could accurately predict how they will treat you 5 years from now. Imagine knowing with absolute neurological certainty whether the person you are dating is genuinely kind or just highly skilled at mimicking empathy. Imagine seeing right through the polished executive in an interview to the lazy, entitled worker underneath. It is not magic. It is simple behavioral calibration. Most people spend their entire lives blind to behavioral data. They look at a person's smile, they listen to their self-proclaimed values, and they assume that's the reality. But the human brain is a master of deception. We are wired to project the best version of ourselves to gain social status and safety. If you rely on what people say about themselves or how they act when everything is going perfectly, you are basically begging to be manipulated. In the next few minutes, I am going to give you a psychological skeleton key. We are going to strip away the noise and focus on just 2 specific, highly calibrated pressure points. These are not grand gestures. They are quiet, almost invisible behavioral triggers. When you know what these 2 things are and exactly how to spot them, people will practically hand you the blueprint to their soul. They won't even realize they're doing it. By the end of this, you will never look at a partner, a friend, a colleague, or even a stranger the same way again. You will see them for exactly who they are, not who they want you to think they are. Every single day, you are walking through a minefield of human deception. Right now, someone in your life is wearing a mask. It might be a partner who claims they'll always have your back, a friend who smiles while secretly harboring resentment, or a business associate who speaks of integrity while calculating how to squeeze you out. The scariest part? You won't see the betrayal coming until the damage is already done. Why? Because you are measuring character using the wrong metrics. You are waiting for a massive storm to hit to see if their house stands. But by then, you've already signed the lease. You've already invested your trust, your heart, and your money. What if I told you that the code to decrypting anyone is already running in front of you, in plain sight, every single day? You don't need a polygraph, and you don't need years of observation. You only need to pay attention to just 2 highly specific things. If you learn to isolate these 2 variables, you can read a person's psychological baseline in minutes. But if you ignore them, you will continue to be blindsided by the people you trust most. Let's look at the data. The first thing you must pay attention to is how a person responds to minor, low-stakes friction. When a person experiences a major crisis, say a medical emergency or a sudden financial shock, their brain releases adrenaline and cortisol. This triggers a conscious state of high alert. Their cognitive control is maxed out. They know they are on stage, so they perform. But what happens when the friction is tiny? A slow-loading web page, a flight delay, a barista putting milk in a coffee when they explicitly asked for oat, a minor traffic jam when they are already 5 minutes late. In these moments, the stakes are too low for the brain to trigger its crisis performance protocol. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for maintaining that polite social mask, is slightly fatigued or distracted. It suffers from what we call cognitive depletion. This is where the mask slips. The conscious mind is too busy dealing with the annoyance to police the subconscious baseline. Pay close attention to what leaks out during these micro moments of friction. Does a minor inconvenience trigger an immediate flash of micro anger? Do they instantly look for someone to blame, shifting accountability outward? Do they exhibit a physical leak, a sudden tightening of the jaw, a sharp intake of breath, or a cold, dismissive roll of the eyes before they quickly catch themselves and smile again? If a person turns cold, hostile, or childishly frustrated over a wrong food order, that is not an isolated bad day. That is their authentic baseline coping mechanism when they lack the energy to pretend. If they cannot regulate their nervous system over a cold cup of coffee, they will absolutely fail you when real, high-stakes pressure hits. The second, and perhaps most lethal test of true character, is the power delta. This is how a person behaves when there is an absolute asymmetry of power, specifically, how they treat people who can do absolutely nothing for them. When we interact with a boss, a wealthy client, a hot date, or someone we want to impress, our brains automatically activate ingratiation protocols. We mimic their body language, we soften our vocal tone, and we exhibit high empathy. This isn't necessarily malicious, it's evolutionary survival. We are nice to people who have power over us because it benefits us. Therefore, how someone treats you, especially if you have status, money, or emotional value to them, tells you absolutely nothing about their character. It only tells you what they want from you. To see their true character, you must look laterally. Watch how they interact with the server, the janitor, the valet, the retail worker, or a homeless person on the street. These are people who, in the harsh math of social hierarchy, hold no transaction power over them. When there is no transactional benefit to being kind, what does the person do? Do they look the server in the eye and say thank you? Or do they treat them like a nameless utility? Do they use a tone of quiet condescension, asserting dominance just because they can get away with it? Do they ignore them entirely, treating them as if they are literally invisible? If someone is incredibly warm and attentive to you, but dismissive or cold to the person cleaning the floor, they do not have a good character. They have a highly calculated strategy. They are showing you that their kindness is a currency they only spend when they expect a return on investment. The moment you lose your utility to them, the moment you can no longer do anything for them, they will treat you exactly like they treated that server. Character is not a hidden, mysterious treasure buried deep within the human psyche. It is a set of behavioral patterns constantly radiating outward in microsignals. Stop listening to the stories people tell you about who they are. Stop letting polished charm blind your analytical observation. Next time you are trying to calibrate someone's true nature, take a step back. Become the silent observer. Watch them when the elevator is delayed. Watch them when the waiter brings the wrong dish. And watch, with absolute focus, how they treat the person who is bringing them their bill. The data is always there. You just have to have the courage to look at it, process it, and believe what it is telling you. We have been conditioned to believe that reading people requires an exhausting, round-the-clock surveillance of their actions, words, and habits. We assume that if we just watch someone long enough, their true nature will eventually paint itself across a canvas of cumulative time. This is a massive tactical error in behavioral profiling. When you attempt to observe everything, you end up registering nothing of value. You drown in a sea of manufactured data. The human brain is highly adapted for social survival, and part of that survival kit is the projection of a highly curated, deeply deceptive social mask. This mask is not a passive shield. It is an active, dynamic simulation of character, designed specifically to feed you exactly what you want to see. It mimics empathy, simulates competence, and manufactures integrity. If you spend your days scanning someone during their normal, comfortable baseline, you are not analyzing their soul, you are merely grading their performance. You are exhausting your own cognitive bandwidth, cataloging data that was engineered from the ground up to mislead you. The key to bypassing this simulation lies in understanding that the social mask is computationally expensive for the brain to maintain. It requires constant neural energy, active self-monitoring, and continuous prefrontal cortex regulation. Because it is so exhausting, the subconscious mind is perpetually hunting for opportunities to power down this executive control and rest. The mask is never permanent. It is a series of rapid, high-yield performances punctuated by quiet, unmasked resets. Therefore, profiling is not a marathon of constant watching. It is an exercise in strategic neglect, punctuated by hyper-focused, split-second calibration. You do not need to watch someone for 24 hours to know who they are. You need to know the exact 5 seconds where their cognitive guard drops, and you must have your analytical lenses fully focused on them during that precise window. These high-yield windows almost always occur during transition states. A transition state is the micro-boundary where an individual believes they are shifting from a public space to a private one, or from an active interaction to an inactive one. It is the split second after they finish shaking hands with a client and turn toward the exit. It is the moment they step into an elevator and believe the doors have fully closed. It is the precise millisecond after they finish telling a joke and the laughter in the room begins to fade. In these fleeting, boundary-crossing moments, the brain undergoes a brief period of cognitive unloading. The conscious mind relaxes its grip on the facial micromuscles, the vocal cords, and the physical posturing. If you are watching during this micro-window, you will witness the instantaneous collapse of the persona. You might see a warm, highly animated expression instantly flatline into a cold, empty stare of pure contempt the moment they think their target's back is turned. You might catch a fleeting micro-expression of profound arrogance right after they deliver a self-deprecating comment. This single, unedited raw data point is worth more than 6 months of casual, everyday observation. By focusing your attention exclusively on these transition boundaries, you conserve your own analytical energy, bypass the noise of their social performance, and capture the uncensored, biological reality of their true psychological baseline. To truly understand the psychological mechanics of behavior leakage, you must first understand that friction acts as an environmental solvent. Under normal, frictionless conditions, the human ego operates in a highly controlled, synthetic state of social compliance. We smile, we speak at a metered volume, and we display socially expected gestures because the environment allows us to do so without any cognitive strain. But the moment you introduce friction, specifically minor, low-stakes friction, you force the brain to make a micro-allocation of cognitive energy. Unlike a major crisis, which instantly deploys massive neural reserves to maintain a carefully manufactured image of composure, low-stakes friction is insidious because the brain deems it too insignificant to warrant a full cognitive defense. The prefrontal cortex, which is actively working to suppress primitive impulses and maintain your social mask, experiences a momentary, microscopic dip in metabolic resources. The mask doesn't shatter, it simply sags for a fraction of a second. This is where the raw, unedited baseline of an individual's neural wiring leaks into the physical world. When you observe someone encountering minor friction, you are looking for the exact point where their conscious self-regulation fails to override their autonomic response. Think of a slow elevator, a misplaced set of keys, a minor billing error, or a brief delay at a checkout counter. In these precise moments, the individual's executive function is momentarily hijacked by a minor irritant. Because the brain perceives the event as low consequence, it does not sound the alarm to keep the social mask perfectly aligned. What leaks out in this brief window of cognitive depletion is their genuine, unfiltered coping mechanism. If you are training your eyes to detect these micro-behaviors, you will start to see the hidden machinery of their personality. You are not looking for a dramatic outburst or a physical tantrum. Those are rare and easily spotted. Instead, you are looking for the subtle, involuntary micro-gestures. Look for the brief, unilateral tightening of the lip corner, a micro-expression of contempt directed at an inanimate object or an innocent bystander. Watch for a sudden, sharp drop in vocal pitch, transitioning from a warm, melodic social tone to a flat, cold, and transactional drone. Observe the hands. Do the fingers clench into a microfist, or does the jaw visibly lock as they attempt to swallow their immediate rise in cortisol? These microscopic leaks are incredibly high-fidelity data points because they are entirely involuntary. The individual is completely unaware that their body is broadcasting their internal state of stress. This is the fractal nature of human behavior. How a person manages a microscopic, low-stakes delay is a direct, scalable representation of how they will manage massive, high-stakes pressure when their psychological and physical reserves are completely depleted. If their immediate default reaction to a minor inconvenience is outward blame, passive-aggressive hostility, or a cold withdrawal of empathy, that is their true psychological baseline. They cannot hide it because they do not even realize it is happening. When you master the art of observing behavioral leakage under friction, you no longer have to guess how someone will behave when the stakes are high and lives or fortunes are on the line. You have already witnessed their nervous system's default setting in the quiet, low-stakes moments when they thought no one was looking. To decode the absolute truth of an individual's character, you must analyze their behavior through the lens of power dynamics. Human beings are inherently hierarchical creatures, and our brains are constantly calculating our relative status compared to those around us. When we interact with someone we perceive as an equal, a superior, or someone who possesses transactional utility, such as a potential romantic partner, a boss, or an influential client, our subconscious instantly initiates what is known as an ingratiation protocol. We soften our tone, we mirror their posture, and we display highly calibrated pro-social behaviors to secure their approval or resources. This means that a person's behavior toward you, especially if you hold any form of social or economic leverage over them, is completely compromised data. It is a manufactured performance designed to optimize their own position. To find the uncompromised data, you must look at how they operate when the power differential is flipped entirely in their favor. This is the absolute power delta, how a person treats individuals who occupy a lower rung on the situational hierarchy and who possess zero capacity to reward, punish, or influence them. This test is highly effective because it isolates the variable of self-interest. When there is no transactional incentive to be polite, respectful, or empathetic, the conscious mind relaxes its compliance filters. The way someone treats a server, a receptionist, a sanitation worker, or a driver reveals their raw, unfiltered attitude toward human value itself. When you observe these interactions, you are looking for microscopic indicators of entitlement and social categorization. Notice the eye contact. Does the individual look directly at the person assisting them, acknowledging their shared humanity, or do they look past them, treating them as a mere biological extension of a service? Watch the physical spacing and gestures. Do they snap their fingers, wave their hand dismissively, or invade the other person's physical space with an air of effortless dominance. Pay close attention to the vocal dynamics. Is there a sharp, cold transition from the warm, animated tone they use with you to a flat, demanding, and transactional drone when addressing the service